Guys, Ryan Bidoff here, blogging from paradise. I run a blog called bloggingfromparadise.com where I sell blogging ebooks, blogging courses. I also share blog posts to help you with smart blogging tips. If you want to circle the globe like my wife Kelly and I do, or whether you want to live in your hometown, that's cool too, and do the part-time blogging bit, generate some passive income, or just have some fun. Do any amateur blogging deal. Either way, that's what I do. Anyway, at bloggingfromparadise.com. So you can visit there and check all that stuff out. Why is the world depressing? And how do you get beyond it? The world looks pretty depressing. It's depressing because it's impossible. And you get beyond it by training your mind to see that everything that appears to be in the world out there is a thought and feeling in your mind. It, like the whole thing, is a projection of your mind. It's images in your head. As you train yourself to face fear in your mind, to face guilt, to face grief, you start clearing that stuff from your mind, and by default, organically, because this is who you really are, you will see love, peace, God, oneness, unity, serenity, shining, poking through, if you will, coming through the symbols of the world, which are illusions. So it appears to be really depressing because it was designed, as they say in A Course in Miracles, as an attack on God. Jesus says it's a world where God can enter not. And this really, when you think it through, and you have to think it through, guys, because if not, you won't accept it. It makes perfect sense that it's depressing because it was made in hate by the ego. Love can't make hate. God can't make hate. So yeah, if you put your values in the world and having a spouse and having a partner and having a family, and you don't look below that surface, it's depressing because every body has to quote unquote die. We all put these aside. So imagine if you put your full faith and peace in a body that has to die. Because it's in the world and because it's not real, it's not really who you are, it's going to be pretty depressing. And I think most of us have evidence of that. When bodies suffer, our own, bodies of those we love, we're attached to, suffer, or clinging to in the world, it's this stress, anger, rage. It's impossible. It has to be depressing. Of course, it's depressing. The way past it is to understand that you're seeing that world only through your mind. And by training your mind, by facing your fears, the depression goes away. You are spirit forever. You have an unlimited mind, but you have many different beliefs that the ego jammed into it. That you believe, that you trust, so you think, I'm not a spirit. I'm not the son of God. I'm not eternal love. I'm a weak, piddly body. I'm a weak mind. I'm a victim of the world. That's why it's depressing. It's the belief that God is dead and the world is reality, when God is reality and the world is dead. It's not real, guys. If you really think it's real, and I still do, a part of my mind definitely does, so I'm with you. But the more you go into your own mind, you can't put your faith in the world because it will depress you. It has to. It was made by the ego in guilt as an attack on God. Think of it. If it's all physicality and forms and images, all that stuff in the world, you know that God is spirit and love. Spirit, love, and love. Spirit, love. You know that's not form. Now, the more you train your mind, you see the Spirit and the Holy Spirit. You see love. you see unity shining through that a little bit more. So that's the beauty of it. The purpose, you came here because you think there's something here, and then you start to realize, oh, there's something that ultimately I'm really looking for is not egoic in form or in images, but it is to wake up from the dream or from the nightmare or from the bad dream or from the depression, to find out who you really are. If something was made in hate, it's going to be depressing. But it's still an illusion because God didn't make it. That's the salvation. That's when you're meditating, or when you're doing A Course in Miracles, or you're doing Kriya Yoga, or I'm saying doing, but you're following these rituals, symbolic rituals. And you start to see, I'm seeing depression because in my mind there's depression. I'm feeling depressed because in my mind there's depression. Underneath the depression, there's fear in my mind. 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 There's guilt. There's rage. There's grief. It's all there, guys. It's all there. Now, there's something that I have to clarify right here. I really have to clarify. If you feel in your mind absolutely hopeless, not like a surface level, but like, I'm going to kill this body. If you feel that way, that type of depression, like I feel like I want to end it. There's something very important to do. And it's this. Understand that you can be guided by love, by your intuition, by spirit, by your gut, to work with the symbols of the world to help forgive that feeling. In practical terms, it means that, let's say you feel horribly suicidal. So you're like, I'm going to kill this body. I'm going to kill myself, because you think you're the body. You think you're the ego. Jesus says in the Course, the ego follows you beyond the grave. You come back into form, you're still going to have that in your mind. Yet, if you feel that way, the practicality of the Course and of the world and of just Holy Spirit's love is calling a suicide hotline. Or reaching out to a friend and saying, my God, this is so humiliating and embarrassing. And it's not just depressing. I just feel like it's hopeless. And let me reach out to a friend, someone, the love. Ultimately, reach out to love, and that loving friend will say, hey, coming to you, speaking to you from love, feeling the love. I love you. Let's get some help. So it's not self-healing from an aspect of I have to do it all myself. It's opening up to love and using the symbols of the world, which are illusions, but the symbols to coax you out of that fear in your mind. So never think, when I'm talking about these concepts in the video, that you are beyond the world, because certainly I'm not, and you're not, like right now. It's understanding that when you start to realize that it was made in hate, and you know that love can't make hate. You know that logically. I know that. You know that. God doesn't know what hate is, because God is pure love, eternal. God knows spirit. All this other stuff, all these images, spirit's not an image. So then you're like, oh, that does, when you sit with it, the ego is going to say, no, because there's this and there's that. And if you sit with that grievance, the raucous shrieks of the ego, and wanting to lash out and be enraged, and no, it's not true, that's not true, you'll see that you're defending and fighting for help, which proves that it's the ego's voice. You see that you're defending depression, you're fighting for depression. And it's because the ego hates itself. It's a death wish. So it will try to preserve the depressing, enraged, insane, mad world of physicality, form, images, because it wants to punish you. And the Holy Spirit's like, well, whenever you're here and ready to start listening, to forgive these ideas, and to maybe, listen to me through this guy who's circling the globe, you know, when he comes up with these, when he opens up to the Holy Spirit's guidance and is like, yeah, create that video. Go ahead. And ultimately, it's listening to love. Like, you know, this makes sense when you're relaxed, when your mind's relaxed and you're just open to love. When you're enraged and you're agitated, you're going to fight it. And that's okay too, because that fighting proves that you're looking to be more depressed other than to be glad. Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. There you go. I mean, this is what the Course in Miracles is. It's Jesus's mind teaching you how to wake up from this really bad dream. That's a dream. It's depressing. But you don't just stop at the depression. That's insane. Meaning not sane, meaning it doesn't make sense. You start learning, okay, all these enlightened ascended masters, they're saying that the kingdom of heaven is within. Everything is in your mind. So the world's really depressing because it was made in hate and rage. You don't stop there, because then you'll live in hate and rage and depression. You gently, calmly take the next step and you start to forgive the fear in your mind that invested you in the world, which is the ego. And when I'm saying it's not real, guys, it appears to be real. It seems to be real. You think it's real. You believe it's real. That's only because the ego has drilled these insane ideas into your mind and you accept them. When you start facing fear, you kick those fears out of your mind by expressing it. It feels uncomfortable. And then in your mind, you're like, holy smokes. Or, this is not for kids, so I'll say, like, you'll have moments as you face more of your fears and you start organically being who you really are. Love, spirit, eternity. You have these moments, like that's how God created you, as pure eternal spirit. You will have moments where you say to yourself or out loud, holy shit, I'm forever. And you're not afraid to say that to yourself or in front of other bodies, because you begin to overcome the fear of being criticized, mocked, made fun of, labeled as being crazy or nuts. Because you understand those are fears in your mind. And if it reflects back to you through other bodies, you know it's just the ego. It's that mind. Ultimately, it's one ego, but as you're working on the whole separation thing, as I am, you'll say, okay, that's just the ego, or it's their ego, it's their fear, it's their belief in the illusion. It's their defense. They want the world to be depressing because they hate themselves. And any aspect of me that believes deeply in the world is because I hate myself. And I hate myself because I feel guilty. And I feel guilty because I believe I've split from God. You haven't. But I believed I split, and I created this world in my mind of bodies and death and depression and egoic world. I believe I'm the ego. And the Course is like, not really. It's an illusion. It's a bad dream. You have amnesia. David Hoffmeister, I like mentioning Spirit speaking through him. He's like, you have a case of amnesia. You think you're this. Or you think that's real, the camera, phone. All this stuff degrades, including the body, when you put it aside. So God couldn't have created anything that dies, because life can't create death. It makes perfect sense when you actually say that to yourself. Now, the ego may say, no, I've learned differently. And then when you listen to the ego, guys, you step into hell, which is an illusion. Because it's not true. But when you fight for hell, you'll get it. And then you'll go deeper into the world. And then you'll be more depressed and more enraged. If it's fear, if it's defense, if it's judgment, if it's my God is better than your God, that's called the ego. Because God is pure love. So if you hear that voice and you defend, do you think that's the Christ? Do you think that's God? Does that sound like pure love to you? Got to start admitting that you're fighting for depression. You're fighting for rage. You're fighting for guilt. You're trying to be what you're not. And that's why it feels even more uncomfortable, why you feel really bad. Because you're appearing to step farther away from pure love, deeper into the ego, deeper into the world. What's going to happen when you get deeper into the world? You'll become more depressed, more defensive, more enraged. It's impossible. That's why here's a symbolic message, symbolic experience from this morning. I mean, they're always unfolding. I want to share with you. Here, house sitting in northern New Jersey, beautiful, basically mansion, 4-level, beautiful, beautiful home in a posh area of northern New Jersey. You know, quote unquote, worldly, rich, ritzy. So I put the recyclables out, and I couldn't find the recycling container in the back, so I put them out in the kitchen recycling basket with no top, like the type of garbage pail you'd see in the kitchen. Topless, though. So I put them out front, stacked to the top. All the recycling guys had to do was pick it up and dump it in. And I noticed that it was still filled to the brim. All the neighbors with their official recycling blue covered containers had them picked up, and I checked, looked inside. Ours wasn't. So that's the symbolism of the world being impossible. Logically, from an energy of love, the individuals could, and this is not a complaint, it's an analogy of the symbols of the world and why it's impossible, because it's based in fear. Logically, they could have picked it up from love and dumped it in and put it back. There's no logic there, no automatic, where they're like, oh, we're only going to do automatic. Even if it was automatic, if the guy was in, he could have from love. But since the world is made in hate and rests on fear, and fear is always the end result, layer after layer after layer, it's made in the laws of man and not the laws of God, which is love. The law of God is love. So the reasoning, the logic will always come back to fear. So it's impossible. It'll never make sense. So they could have picked it up, but they're afraid, because based on a law, based in fear, that if it's not a blue container official, they're not to touch it, because it's the law. It's the rule. Say the law. It's the rules. It's the world's rules, all of which are based. Well, why is it the rule? Well, there could be so many different reasons, but they're all based in fear, which is an illusion, which is impossible. One of the rules. Well, even though you're in the middle of a city, it has to be covered because they're afraid, they fear that bears will get in. So that's why they won't pick it up. Okay, fine. What if you're in the middle of the city? Doesn't matter. It's the rules. Do you see how the ego is? It says it's the rules, and every rule is based in fear. And I could probably go on for 15 minutes, another 15 minutes, or about 17 minutes in, talking about all the rules of the world. It's impossible. It's depressing. It's based in fear. When love would just say, let me pick it up and throw it right in. And then he won't have to stuff it. And you see, I forgave it in my mind, but if I didn't forgive it, then I would be afraid and agitated. I forgave it as being of the world, impossible, letting it go. I'll just bring it back in. So what happens if everything piles up in the back because of the fear? I'll forgive it in my mind, and I'll put it out in a couple of containers, or I'll meter it. But it's just a little symbolic. Love would say, dump it. So we keep everything moving along. Fear says this rule, that rule, we can't pick it up. No complaints for the world. This is not egoic, it's just a symbol. You could see so many different, well, the bears, okay, well, if the bears aren't in town, if there's not going to be a bear in town or a raccoon, it's in the middle of a city and there's not much around the area, it has to officially be covered because there's a union rule that will only pick that up. Because one time we picked up a container without the top, and somebody poured something caustic on themselves, or they broke a piece of glass and they cut their, it'll always, see, the rule will always be based in fear, which is an illusion, and it's impossible. So it just, everything in time and space, everything in form is fear, guilt, rage, and depression when you get deep enough. Because God didn't create it, the ego did. And the ego is rage and guilt and fear. But you see that it's all made up and you're dreaming it all, and it's more of it's not more of, it's a complete illusion. The depression is an illusion. The more you face your fears and let it go, because you become more of who you really are, eternal spirit. And obviously, when you start to identify with eternal spirit and love, you're going to laugh at fear and see that it's not real. You're going to laugh at the world and see that it's not real. When you're pure love, migrating towards pure love by letting go of your fears in your mind, by expressing them, would pure love be agitated at a full thing of recyclables out front? No, only fear is, only the ego is. What does pure love see? Or a little more towards pure love in that moment. It sees a symbolic opportunity for a video. Talk about the symbols of the world. Forgiveness, serenity, peace, bring it right in the back. But this does not happen unless you really get into mind training. And it doesn't happen when you're stuck in the world. Because you see, if I was in the world in that moment, fear would have come up in my mind. I would have blamed. And it would have been impossible and depressing. And that goes across the board, guys. If you drill deep enough in the world, even if things appear to make sense in the world, it's only because of some fear in your mind that you say, oh yeah, you should, or this guy should be punished. Pure love laughs at everything because it sees that it's fake. It's an illusion. It's made up. You're not who you think you are, guys. And again, a point that I really want to drill home, I want you to be present with. You work with the symbols of the world. So Kelly and I are not giving it all up. I'm not going to live in a cave right now, although if I was guided to by spirit, I would. But you could work with the symbols of the world to wake yourself up. And when it talks about depression, when I talk about depression, or if you come across this video and you feel like I really want to end my egoic life, I want to kill the body or something along those lines, like really, guys, open up to spirit, cry, be enraged, but be open to help in the world where love is shining through that could guide you through. A hotline, walking into a hospital, or calling a friend that is love to you. They symbolize love and forgiveness, and not, asking, you know what I mean, guys, those friends that are symbols of love, that are symbols of the Holy Spirit, that just are so helpful and always there. Call one of them because they could help you through what would be a dicey worldly situation, even if it's in the illusion. So I just wanted to mention that because Spirit was kind of coming through right now saying, yeah, if somebody sees this video, if they're looking it up and they're like super duper depressed to the point of like, whoa. But you have to remember, guys, working with the symbols of the world, you'll start to see that it's still an illusion, the world, yet the love shining through the friend, the person on the suicide hotline, the body or the friend body here, or, the love at the hospital underneath all the worldly stuff. So it's not getting deeper into the world, not getting more attached in the world, thinking that the world saved you, because it's hell. It is depression. It's the love. It's spirit shining through the symbols of the world. That's what you're tuning into. And a lot of people, they don't turn to spirit and look more and more beyond the world and listen more to love and spirit until they face some of those deep fears. And that's me too, in my mind. Usually it's pure and utter disgust, rage, crippling guilt, where finally you're like, I have to face this stuff to clear it out, and then listen more and more to love and to see that it's all not real, even if it appears to be really real. It appears to be so dense and just tangible, and the images seem so real. The more you face your fears, you'll be like, oh man, I'm dreaming this. I'm spirit. I'm just unlimited mind who's dreaming it, and I've been dreaming a nightmare because of my own fear. And you change the projector. You won't really be projecting, but listen more to spirit. But as you pull out that bad nightmare, the horror movie, beneath what appears to be chaos and what appears to be the world and the depression, there's love. And you'll help other minds, although it's only one mind, but I'll say on a worldly level, egoic level, you'll help other people light up through videos like this. Or for opening up the door for someone because it's an act of love, or for listening to someone, or someone's enraged and they're completely expressing their fear, guilt, and rage. And you sit there, mouth closed, relaxed, and you're allowing them to unload. And really that's for your mind. Helping them too in the process, it seems, but it's for you to be with that stuff. So guys, 25 minutes in, that's good for now. Again, bloggingparadise.com, that's all the blogging stuff, but this is some of the mind training stuff. intending to bring with me and to put out there in the world. So actually, not out there in the world, out there into love. So until next time, you know what to do. Love you guys. Enjoy paradise all.